Welcome to International Advisors In The Loop.
So here we are on In The Loop. Very excited today to be in the offices of Hoxton Wealth's Chris Ball. Chris, welcome to In The Loop, our first ever podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, and I feel privileged to be number one.
There you go. Of course. On my right is Sam Oakes. Sam, fantastic to meet you for the first time. A big part of the success story here at Hoxton Wealth as well.
Great, well, thanks for having me. Nice to be on the other side of the mic.
It feels really weird to me because we see you guys on screen all the time, and here we are doing our first ever podcast. We've been a bit slow to the game, and it's interesting because International Advisor and International Investment, or what is now Investment International, we've been kind of big on video. So, I remember back in the days with Asset TV. Remember Asset TV? Yeah. Which I think still going. I used to do videos with those guys when I came back into the industry about 10 years ago. We, really went big on video, but we looked at podcasts as something that we didn't want to do. But now it's huge, isn't it?
It's just an industry in itself.
I'm really interested in your story. Tell me, why did you get into this part of the industry? And we'll talk about Hoxton Wealth and other things in a moment. But why did you get into the podcasting area? And now it's a huge part of what you do. Yeah,
I mean, look, I think what became very apparent to me was in 2022 and 2023, we built an amazing business, but not a lot of people had heard about us. So and again, kind of all cards on the table, I wasn't massively keen on putting myself out there initially. Some people laugh at that now, the amount we post on LinkedIn and the amount of content we put out. But I was just really looking at it like it's not something that I wanted to do, and I was quite happy that we were underneath the radar. But it was doing a massive disservice to the people within the business and to also the business in general on trying to attract talent, trying to attract clients. So it was a huge shift for me to actually decide to do it. So I've been watching, with most things in life, you can try and educate yourself, or you can buy someone that's got the experience and has done it already. So with me, we were at a point in our business where luckily I didn't have to try and educate myself, and it has been an education in itself, I suppose. But really, with the content side, I went out and Sam happened to be available at the time we were really starting to take this seriously. And so we doubled down, and focused on that as something that we really wanted to pursue. And, along came Sam.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because lots of podcasts are now podcasts with other podcasts having chats, right? So in some respects. So did you meet on his podcast?
Correct.
Sam, tell us about that and how that's now brought you to Hoxton and how your role works.
Sure, so my background is 16 years working in recruitment, specifically within the financial planning sector. So recruitment was always a bit of a necessary evil, and people didn't really want to talk to you, a bit like estate agents, a bit cruel to estate agents, but that's a bit like what it was like. So in the last sort of 3 to 4 years of me being at Recruit UK, I decided to focus my attention on how can we build our brand, how can we connect with more businesses to sell our services. So I set up the Financial Planner Life podcast. I ended up being on somebody else's podcast first called Recruitment Rollercoaster, which is all about the journey of recruitment directors. I remember I came off of it and I thought, no one's doing this within our space. There was a complete and empty void niche that required somebody to talk about careers within financial planners, because of course we were experiencing a distinct lack of young people coming in and an aging population of advisors. 56 is the average age, and we were expecting 10 to 15,000 to retire out of the profession. So I thought, well, I'll create a podcast. I'll first off create a higher purpose, which was to attract new talent to the profession. That means that the profession would get behind me, hopefully. It was a good deed. And I used that podcast to interview people about their careers within financial planning. And a byproduct of that, of course, is that I started to recruit for them as well. And as the time went on, I think we're on 250 episodes now. So it's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. It's been in the top 10 on Apple.
It's our first. I love that 250 episodes sounds like you've been doing it for 20 years or something, but what's the sort of frequency been?
Once a week.
Once a week?
Yeah, I always try to be consistently once a week. I think I've probably missed a week 10 times, something like that.
In 2020 it started, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2020, yeah. So, and the interesting thing is you mentioned that Chris was on my podcast. So Chris was on my podcast. Jonathan Jay was on my podcast, who's now our head of UK.
Yeah.
Bobby Sahote has come in to manage the Birmingham office. She was on my podcast. So lots of different people that have been on my podcast, I'm now working with them.
That's really interesting.
So many people through the podcast, and I've connected with so many others. It's really, it's an amazing tool to build deep connection with people, because I think when you actually put something on a podcast and you create that state of vulnerability, it creates a connection.
Yeah.
And that connection lasts over time when somebody is willing to share their story with you.
I think that's a really interesting point, because it's kind of like our industry, isn't it? When you're in financial services, when you're out with the client and you talk to them face to face, whether it be online or face to face, sharing that story, the life goals that have, the dreams, the ambitions that people have, and helping them achieve those, isn't that the best part of being a financial advisor?
Yeah. I mean, look, the lifestyle financial planning piece has definitely become more prevalent over the years, and with people that take that really seriously and really pushing that. That's how you create long-lasting, sticky relationships. If you're just product selling, then you're only with them just on that product. If you're focusing on their whole life and how the products that you're utilising are helping them build the life that they want, then that's obviously a key part. And storytelling is a massive part of that. And making sure that you have stories that resonate with the clients. It's
interesting, this whole piece around recruitment. I think retention is, to me, in this industry that we have, lots of people move around, particularly in the advice world. In an ideal world, you don't really want them to move around. You want them to stay.
No.
So how do you kind of mitigate against that? And like you say, you've been helpful with the recruitment side, but how do you keep the retention?
I think two ways. There's two ways that you can retain staff. You make it so difficult when they leave that they never want to leave. They're scared to leave. You're keeping them there. It's like the battered wife that doesn't want to leave their husband. And there are people that do that, as we well know. And then there's others. That the other way is you make it so good that they want to stay there. And actually giving them the opportunity to express their views and come on to your podcast and tell the world about what they're doing is a great way to retain staff. And it's a great way to showcase your business to attract talent to your business as well. But I say that kind of tongue in cheek. You've got to be committed to these things. There's no good in rolling out 1 or 2 episodes and thinking you're going to change the world, or getting disheartened when we started this July last year, and I mean, we was looking back actually yesterday. We weren't looking back at how great we were, but we were looking back at we do that as well, but we were looking back mainly at how far we come over the past 10 months on the journey. And it is rapid growth, and you do learn a lot, and you do get a lot of experience with it. But to anyone that's looking to do it, I would say you need to make sure that you remain consistent.
Remaining consistent is a good tip. Well, this is our first podcast, so
I'm sure you will be consistent.
When we hit 200, right, we'll come back and say hello again. Well, I'm hoping we'll say hello lots of times throughout our journey. But this podcast is called In The Loop. I think our industry, we all go out, we meet clients, you meet other advisors in the industry. I'm talking like an advisor myself. I'm not an advisor. Let me make that clear. I am qualified though, so I used to be an advisor.
It's mortgage consultant, wasn't it?
No, I was full IFA, so full FP, all the exams and what have you. But that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So wow, that was a long time ago. I moved at 25. I'm 55 now. When I was 25, I moved across into journalism, financial services journalism, and guess where I worked? We've just, off camera, we were talking about this. My first ever job in financial services journalism for a short period was money marketing.
Wow.
So I worked on Poland Street in London. I went back to the Lake District and took a job as the entertainment sort of correspondent of the North West Evening Mail, because that to me at the time was better. And I lasted about 18 months. The lure of London got me back, and I went to the FT, worked on Financial Times Business and so on and so forth. And now my journey's brought me to Dubai, and next week I'll be in New York and then Miami and the Bahamas on May the 7th, so 2 or 3 weeks from now.
Lovely.
The international side. What do you love about the international side of our business?
The international side of our business, what I love about it is the breadth of different. Like if you're just operating as an IFA in the UK, it's only ISAs, pensions, these kind of things, very UK focused. Whereas when you're operating internationally, today we could have spoken to someone in Asia about their 401k IRA. Later on in the morning, we might
What's
speak.
that?
So 401k IRA is a US retirement account or retirement vehicle. Later in the day, we might speak to someone about their superannuation over in Australia and how that ties in. In the middle of the day, we'll be speaking to people in the UK. Later in the day, we can be speaking to people in the US. Very similar, but it's just different across the different jurisdictions, and that's what makes it exciting. It's nice to be able to add variety to what you do, rather than it just be monotonous. And some people argue that makes you a jack of all trades, master of none. But I would say being a specialist in the international space is a specialism in itself, and you have to know more than if you were just doing it in one country.
So, how many offices have you guys got? Where are you based? Where do you have people?
Yeah. So globally, we have offices in New York. We have offices in Miami, Florida now, and Mexico City. We've also got them in the UK. So Sam just alluded to it, London. We open our new office in the city in May, which is great. Birmingham and Liverpool. We've also got offices in Cyprus. We obviously have 2 offices here. So we've got one here and another one in the DIFC. We have another office in Australia, in Sydney. And then we have, I think that's covered that off. Then we have another business that we are very far down the line with in Asia that will complete soon.
Fantastic. So you've got this model that is transferable in any part of the world.
Yeah.
What's interesting about you guys, though, on the UK side, you're one of the kind of few international financial services advisory firms that are now also still operating in the UK. How come you've managed to do it where others can't?
We've managed to do it, I think, because we've taken the UK seriously and treated it as its own business. So Sam, Jonathan J came onto Sam's podcast, and he's our managing director of our UK business. Jonathan was at Investec, he was the director there. He's been at other UK financial planning businesses and built his financial, he is a UK financial planner first and foremost. He's not been international, then trying to come back and masquerade. Yeah. Operating internationally has got a lot less murky over the past couple of years, as a lot of the international groups have cleaned themselves up, which is great, and that evolves throughout over time. Bob 49 came in here with commission disclosures and things like that, but I just generally think people's professionalism and want to do exams. And now, if you want to earn a lot of money in Dubai, you become a real estate agent. You don't become a financial planner. Yeah. So if you want to earn big money tomorrow, you'll be selling real estate. Whereas before, if you wanted to earn big money in these places, you would become a financial planner. So it's a career now, rather than I'll go over there for a few years, earn a few quid, and then fuck off, for want of a better word, and then leave hell and dismay on people's financial lives in the background. All those in there. Next door is Rebecca. She's doing exam training all day today with our guys to get them qualified to become financial planners. It never existed before.
Yeah. There was, I remember the first time I came over here in the industry, 10 years ago. Obviously Dubai's changed dramatically in that period. But when you look at financial services, what I came over to was a pre-Bod 49 industry. People likened it to the Wild West, and people sort of laughed about it and like it was okay, you know, it's like the Wild West in Dubai. Do you think now, looking back, because you've worked in Dubai for a good few years now.
14.
14, right,
in the
so
Middle,
14
Middle East,
years. Do you think that it is fully cleaned up? And if not, why is it not fully cleaned up now?
Well, think you could say, nowhere is fully cleaned up. The US is not fully cleaned up. The UK is not fully cleaned up. Europe, there's still people that if they want to do bad things will operate in bad ways. It's whether they are incentivized to do so and whether the regulator allows it to go on. Here, I think the regulator's done a great job of clamping down. ESCA have been all over people operating who aren't regulated, so that's definitely the first step. You're now getting them looking at people that operate under umbrellas and structures that they don't want, which is another good step. Really what it does though is it raises the barrier to entry to get into a market. Like to get into the market in the Middle East, you've got to have £1 million in your back pocket pretty much to build out a firm, to get the capital adequacy, to employ the people for the time period you need to get the license. Not a lot of people have got £1 million, and that negates fly-by-night operators out of it. So they turn to things like real estate. So here now what you've got is every man and their dog running around, because the barriers to entry are really low to get a RERA license. Every man and their dog running around being a real estate broker and selling off-plan property.
Interesting. It's more like, and this might link into something that's kind of prevalent right now in Dubai and our industry. But it's really interesting. So the real estate industry has become the sort of new cowboys, Wild West of Dubai. Financial advice has cleaned up largely. I'm out and about talking with everyone at the moment. I'm not going to mention the name of the firm that's on everybody's lips. You'll know who that is. The loan notes that you call it, that have been sold, and there's talk that it was in International Advisor on Friday, that money has been sort of frozen and not being paid out, and there's sort of concerns around the industry. What can we do as an industry to stop this kind of thing happening? Do we call it out when we hear it the first time round and get onto the regulator, grass them up, get them stopped? How do we stop it?
Well, the thing is that loan notes in themselves aren't necessarily a bad investment. You've got private credit, which is part of this alts universe that is massive. So I went over to the US recently, and in Miami I went to a festival called Future Proof, and there was a huge contingent of alternative investment providers that were, you had Carlyle Investments, nearly $1 trillion of assets under management. Like, these are big players. So alternatives have a space, but if you've got normally if it's too good to be true, guess what it normally is. Yeah. So if someone is paying you 10 to 15% commission up front for 1 or 2 years investment, I can almost categorically tell you should not be getting involved in that. Now, some people, it's the lure, isn't it, of that, of those high levels of commission that will see them go there. And unfortunately, you can't police that. Some people are just that way inclined. And I agree with you. I think you should shop them in if you do hear about things like that. Because actually, if the company that you're talking in question was not regulated in Dubai, they shouldn't have been operating as they were. And it wasn't sold through any regulated businesses, as I understand. It was out the side or off the side of businesses. It wasn't through any regulated entities because the regulator wouldn't have allowed it.
Well, hang on. Why don't the regulator kick them out? Why aren't the regulator imposing big fines? Are they being too slow, is what I was going to say. Did he wait until someone's actually ended up losing all the money before they then take action?
Well, I think a lot of this, with this particular group in question, was actually approaching advisors individually. So they won't come to the company.
Right.
The companies would say no. And then they were going to approach the individual advisors, lure them with, you don't need them, you'll do it. And all that happens is these guys end up getting themselves in loads of trouble. They end up getting themselves kicked out of the company that they're with. They end up losing all of their clients. They end up getting a bad name. Like, once you get a bad name for selling one of these things, that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
You will never be able to work for a regulated entity ever again. And I think that's what people miss when they do it. They see this quick buck It's this quick buck mentality, which thankfully we're stamping out, and they jump in on it. And unfortunately, once you're burnt, you can't, there's no coming back from it.
There's a lot of work at the moment. There's a lot of business, let's say, in Dubai around citizenship as well, which is it's a kind of it's been a newish thing across the last sort of 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Particularly needed now because of the amount of people coming into Dubai in the Middle East. Do you guys get involved in that, and is that something that you give to a specialist, or?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's it. I think we focus, and I'm not saying this is the right way to do it, but we focus on the areas that we feel we can add value. And I don't have anyone in our business that is a residency and citizenship residency and citizenship business. What I would say is that you're only as good as your weakest link. So we chose not to make that decision because it's a whole business in itself. So companies like Henley Partners, I know Holborn are doing a good job with their residency, or they seem to be doing a lot of it with their residency team. So they've really decided that's going to be a focus of theirs. And if you decide it's going to be a focus of yours, then great. But for us, it wasn't something that we wanted to focus on. I think the residency and citizenship definitely holds a place if it's done correctly, with good underlying investments that people are invested in. It's not just a way to generate a quick buck. And there is a need for it. Lots of people do want a second passport. They do want to change their citizenship or have the opportunity to reside in a country. So there's definitely a place for it, but it's not something that we do ourselves.
How important is recruitment in this industry, getting the right people in your organisation? And, the recruitment consultant world, it's quite a big chunk of change to hand over, to get somebody that you might be able to just find yourself in another way. But how important is it to get the recruitment right? And then we were talking about retention as well. And I'll ask yourself that, Sam.
I think it's massively important to get the recruitment bit right, because you alluded to the fact the amount you can spend by using external recruiters. It's not cheap. Recruitment is not cheap, and once you spend your money on a recruitment fee and then you've taken that person, you could spend £15,000-20,000 on a good hire, good quality financial planner at the moment. £15,000 to £20,000. Then you've got to get that person to join your business, start in the business, pay the first few months' salary. It's a big cost to hiring somebody. So getting the recruitment piece right is hugely important. And I think a lot of that stems down to as well being able to educate people about what it's like to work within the business, what the culture of the business is actually like, so they can literally try before they buy. And that's the whole purpose of our podcast, Hoxton Life, for instance, is someone gets an inside look into the business. What does it look like? Who works there? Do I identify with that person? Was that person on the same sort of career trajectory that I was on? Now they're here at Hoxton. How's it gone for that person? So being able to hear the journey and hear the story from the people that work within the company, I think is hugely powerful and becomes part of what you're going to go on to, which is the retention side of it as well. Yeah. So I think, building an internal recruitment team, I think is a must when you get to a certain size business.
Yeah.
I think you don't ever really give up using external good quality recruiters who find good quality people. But in reality, if you are ticking the boxes by having a good, strong resource within your business, a good, strong recruitment consultant who's doing quality interviews with people, who understands the market, whether that's international or UK, and you are combining that with really strong marketing, so recruitment marketing, video first marketing, podcasting, and not only that, but you are being meaningful and purposeful in respect of how you repurpose that content to reach a wider audience through the channels that they are digesting that information on. So whether that's TikTok, whether that's Instagram, whether that's LinkedIn. I think when it comes to recruitment, you've got to be an absolute superstar on LinkedIn these days. That is, bread and butter for being able to talk to the audience that you want to work within your business.
No, I would also say it's massively important to be real on that as well, because we can paint it's very easy to paint a picture one way, and then you attract a load of people, and actually when they get in the business, it's another way. Yeah. So you have to be truthful and honest on what it is, probably even more honest and more truthful than you would want to be on some stuff, because And I mean, we had it when we first started. A big mistake people make is they tell people what they want to hear.
Yeah.
Or what they think they want to hear. If you've been sold on something and it's not what you thought it was, then there's a massive disparity, and that means that retention goes out the window.
It's a really good point. Do you know what's interesting? And I'll say this, Chris. We spoke on a number of occasions, and it always sort of surprised me. You'll mention other firms, and you'll like you mentioned about, oh, these guys do this, and we don't do this. They're very good. They do. I'm thinking, why is he giving another firm a plug when other companies that you talk to, all they do is talk about themselves? But I think that's real. I think it's correct. I think it's nice. It's refreshing to see, actually.
Look, there's other industry. There's other firms that do it really well. There's people that do things much better than we do in certain areas, and I think we do our bit really, really well, and I think we play really well at it. But what people don't realise is number one, or I don't think people realise, is number one, a profession is a really lonely place if it's just you. Yeah, it's crap. Doesn't attract everyone, and actually competition drives you all to be better. And also, we learn a lot off them. I mean, most people sit and rubbish De Vere, for instance, yeah? And every time I mention De Vere, everyone says, well, Nigel owns you, which it categorically doesn't.
It's all right, people have said that to us as well.
Yeah, and it categorically doesn't. But most of the people in the international space who have done really well for themselves started life at De Vere.
Yourself included?
Myself included, and a lot of the people that work with me now. I'm very thankful for my time there and the opportunities I got given, because if I hadn't been given them, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I think people lose that, and it's like me rubbishing another firm doesn't make my firm any better. It just drags us all down. What I really want to do is big them up so everyone thinks that what we're doing is great, because it is.
Well, I think it's fantastic to see that the industry is changing. As part of what we're doing with In The Loop and with International Advisor, especially with things like our Best Practice Awards, we champion doing things the right way. So congratulations on what you guys have achieved. And it's really great for us to do our first podcast from your office.
Great.
And that's something to be with the experts, which we do look at you guys as the experts for the industry. I was going to say to you, Sam, we're giving away the trade secrets to everybody else. Why would you do that? Why would you tell them how easy it is to do?
Why would I do that? Well, one thing is, not every people will listen to this, and probably if there's 1% that actually take on what it is that we're saying, then go for it. 99% of people don't.
It's really interesting, isn't it? And as a final point, I would just say, to our listeners and our viewers, check out the Hoxton Wealth podcast. Check out your other podcast, Financial Planner Life. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and we hope to see you in episode 2 of In The Loop. I'm not used to doing these things.
It's good.
That's good, mate.
Did a good job.
That's your first one.
That's the first one I've ever done.
Well done. Nice.
Coming up next time, Gary meets up with Mike Cody of Skybound.